agents of change.
Dorothea Lange was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, in 1895, the daughter of two second-generation German immigrants, Johanna Lange and Heinrich Nutzhorn. She is best known for her work as a photographer and photojournalist, and two events shaped her path as a photographer. The first was when she contracted polio at age 7, which left her with a weak right leg and a permanent limp. It shaped me, guided me, taught me, helped me, and humbled me, Lange once said of her disability. I have never overcome it, and I am aware of its strength and power. The second event that shaped her life was being neglected by her father at the age of 12. After this event, she decided to drop her father's surname and took her mother's last name. When she was young, she was often alone while her mother worked, so she roamed the streets of New York, fascinated by the variety of people she saw. This is how she learned to observe people without being intrusive, and this skill was very important for her work as a documentary photographer. Dorothea graduated from Wadley High School for Girls in New York City. At this point, she already knew she wanted to be a photographer, even though she had never used a camera before. She then began studying photography at Columbia University and later did some informal internships at various photography studios in New York. In 1918, she left the Big Apple with a friend to travel the world, but unfortunately she was robbed during her trip and had to interrupt her plans. She stopped in San Francisco, where she found a job in a photographic supply store. There, she met many other photographers and also an investor, who helped her start a successful portrait studio. 2 years later, she married the well-known painter Maynard Dixon, with whom she had 2 sons. Initially, Lange's studio work focused on portraiture of a San Francisco's social elite. But with the onset of the Great Depression in 1929, Dorothea turned her lens from the studio to the streets. Indeed, the Great Depression had serious consequences for the world economy. In the United States, 14 million people lost their jobs. Many became homeless, wandered aimlessly, and often did not have enough to eat. In the 1930s, nearly 300,000 men, women and children moved to Western California in search of work. Lange began photographing these people, leaving her studio to document their lives on the streets of California. She wandered the back streets of the city with her camera, portraying the social and economic hardships that the Depression brought. Lange had finally found her purpose as a photographer. She was not a portraitist, but neither was she a photojournalist. Instead, she became known as one of the first documentary photographers. Lange began working for the Resettlement and Farm Security Administration, and her images showed the public the dire situation of the poor and forgotten, especially sharecroppers, displaced farm families, and migrant workers. Her touching photographs were distributed to newspapers across the country and became iconic of the time. One of Lange's most famous works is Migrant Mother, published in 1936. The photo portrays a woman, Florence Owens Thompson, and 24 years later, Dorothea spoke about her experience taking the photo with these words: I saw and approached the hungry and desperate mother as if drawn by a magnet. I do not remember how I explained my presence or my camera to her, but I do remember she asked me no questions. I made 5 exposures, working closer and closer from the same direction. I did not ask her name or her history. She told me her age, that she was 32. She said that they had been living on frozen vegetables from the surrounding fields. and birds that the children killed. She had just sold the tires from her car to buy food. There she sat in that lean-to tent with her children, huddled around her, and seemed to know that my pictures might help her, and so she helped me. There was a sort of equality about it. Lange showed the picture to the editor of a San Francisco newspaper and explained the conditions at the camp. The editor then informed federal authorities and published an article that included some photos Lange had taken. As a result, the US government decided to take action and help the camp to prevent starvation. Lange portrayed the lives of poor people, and thanks to her photographs, she was able to persuade the government to take action against the dire consequences of the Great Depression. According to an essay by photographer Martha Rosler, Migrant Mother became the most reproduced photograph in the world. Lange was so successful because she understood that photographs can speak their own powerful visual language. As she once said, "No country has ever closely scrutinized itself visually. I know what we could make of it if people only thought we could dare look at ourselves." This is Valeria Unich from Lugo, Italy, for the Agent of Change podcast, for the word goes to where we take it.